Right, guys, welcome back to the Physique Academy podcast. This is the podcast where we talk all things training, nutrition, and lifestyle. And today's special guest, I am joined by a very experienced financial advisor. How are we doing, brother?
All good, man. Thank you for having me.
Jack Grimwood. Yes, sir. And Jack has initially served 7 years in the army before transitioning into financial advisory, but now he runs his own practice. Today's podcast, we are going to be, focusing more on like the fitness, linking into finance and the mindset, the discipline around that, and the same sort of habits that you have to sort of take place that correlate to both. But I just wanted to say as a disclaimer, anything that's said in this podcast is not specific financial advice. This is just general insight for each person individually. Yeah?
100%. Guidance, not advice at this stage.
Cool. So let's delve straight in, mate. So like I said, I want to start off more with the fitness aspect and relating that to finance.
Okay.
The first question or like topic really that I wanted to go over was, how are fitness and finance directly correlated? Are they actually similar in the sense that, you know, they both like require consistency, whether it's you're sticking to like a training program or like a financial investment? It requires discipline and, you know, like delayed gratification. So what's your take on that?
Yeah. So my take on that is anyone that is into fitness is normally good when it comes to being a client and sticking to a plan and things like that. So my job effectively for high net worth individuals, professional athletes, wealthy families, help them grow, protect and preserve their wealth. And that takes planning, it takes consistency, it takes time. And I think that when I meet a prospective client and I'm understanding who they are, as soon as they tell me that they're into fitness or they stick to a particular sport or whatever it may be, I know straight away they're going to be able to understand the fundamentals of long-term planning, investing, things like that. Because I use fitness a lot in my sort of comparisons when I'm talking to clients as well. So, you know, I'll one of the things I always love that I use, because I have a lot of coaches that I actually have as clients as well. And the easiest way I get to explain financial planning with them is think about one of your own clients as a coach, or if you're on that fitness journey and you start up here, you know, with your weight and you're going on a journey when it comes to losing weight and that end goal that you've got. Yep. And the easiest way to explain the investment journey without overly simplifying it is, when a client is losing weight, they're dropping down. They don't lose weight in a straight line.
Never linear.
Okay, it's never from A to B, just a straight line. They're going to have bumps in the road and they're going to have ups and downs, but progressively over time, if you zoom out on that chart long enough, they've started here, they've finished down here. And those bumps in the road for a client could be a weekend away, it could be time in a month for a female, it could be, you know, a little bit of a blowout, whatever it may be. But they've stuck to that journey. And regardless of the bumps in the road, they've got to where they want to be. You invert that chart, that's a financial planning and investment goal. You start off down here and you finish up here over a prolonged period of time, and you're going to have those bumps in the road. And that's the economy. That's things happening around the world. That's markets moving. That's taxes changing, whatever it may be. But you stick to that journey, and over time, you get to where you want to be. So I always find that the fitness journey and the mindset of commitment, discipline, longevity, long-term thinking is exactly the same when it comes to building wealth and investing over time.
Yeah, it's short. I think it's relating to short-term effort and long-term reward. You know, I think again, like relating back to delayed gratification, you have to think more long-term and not act on impulse. Like you say, if you have a setback, or if, like say, you have those teeps and troughs where it's you know, it's not going to be like a linear correlation.
Yeah,
you've got to think long-term with it.
Yeah, the term I always use for clients is thinking decades, not days. Now that might be a bit excessive for the fitness journey, but you can still relate that, because if you've been going to the gym for 10 years, there's not one particular workout that's got you in shape. You know, there's not one thing that you've done or one exercise that's got you there. It's just consistent moves over and over and over again. Same with financial planning and investing. Just sticking with it and just keep on investing, keep on paying regularly, keep on doing what you're doing. You get to where you want to be. There's not one thing that you've done. You know, if I speak to my clients, there's not one thing they've done over the last 10 years that's got them to where they are financially and built their wealth. It's just consistency, long-term vision, commitment that's got them there. So they're so interconnected, the fitness and the finance, the health and the wealth situation. It's an easy thing to compare.
What do you think is people's biggest downfall? Do you think it's their habits or like their knowledge? Because, you know, I don't think it's lack of information potentially, because like say with the use of AI, you know, you're all like just research and the internet in this day and age, you can gather so much information yourself, but I think it's more like a lack of execution.
Yeah, I think with that, again, it is actually funny how much these two link. It's almost exactly the same, right? So what I see in my world, and you probably see it in your side as well, is I think there is an abundance of information, but there's too much information, right? So tailored financial advice and a tailored fitness plan, it has to be for the individual, right?
Yeah.
So your average Joe can go online and say how to achieve X. There's 50 different things that's going to come back. How does that client decide? How does that person decide what is the right thing thing for them?
Or how do they keep account?
Yeah, exactly. So making a decision. So that's the first part. You get paralysis from analysis. So you're overthinking everything. You don't actually make a move, right? So that's the first one. I think the second one, a massive thing, is the emotional element of it. I think finances have money in the UK. It's such an emotional thing. And we worry about money, we panic about it, we judge ourselves on the decision we make, all that sort of stuff. So that's an element of it. So a big part of my role to clients is when things get choppy, for example, in markets, is to kind of hold their hand through that period and guide them through it, in the same sense that as a coach, when things aren't going to plan, you're holding their hand for them, you explaining what's going wrong, why it's going wrong, what we need to do to maintain the direction that we're going in. Remind them that this isn't a 1 month plan, it's a year plan, 6 month plan, whatever. Decades plan, decades plan. It's a long term thing. So it's the paralysis from analysis. There's too much information. It's the emotional. People are held back by their own emotions. They get the better of themselves with their emotions. And then I think on top of that, it's choosing the right thing to do for what that person's trying to achieve, because one piece of advice doesn't fit all, both from finance and fitness. So when you sit with a client, you're going to do a full consultation. You're going to understand their goals and objectives, what's important, exactly what's important to them, their mindset, why they're doing what they're doing. It's exactly the same on my side when I'm sitting with a prospective client. I'm going to sit with you and I'm going to understand your whole story, what your situation is, what resources you have available to you, what your current situation is, where you want to be, and then I'm going to help you close that gap in the most efficient way possible, in the same way that you're going to do that. And I think that's where people go wrong with both sides of this conversation with the fitness.
Well, you are a coach, you know, like I know that the term is financial advisor, but you are a finance coach.
Yeah, so I call myself a consultant, right? We all do the same thing. I'm going to be honest with you. A financial planner, financial advisor, wealth management consultant. It's all kind of the same, depending on where you are. So the more money you have, the more sophisticated your planning needs become. Okay, so that's where I kind of come in with the consult. That's where I sit with affluent business owners, as I said, a few professional athletes, high net worth families, in the same sense that in your world, probably someone who's more complex in their needs, you're going to have to put together a more, you know, structured plan and all the rest of it. It might be health issues, it might be injuries, it might be whatever. So yeah, so that's where it comes into is just making sure that the plan is right for the person.
I'm sort of relating that to the psychology of people, you know, with going back to the habits and people's spending patterns. Is there a sense of accountability that, you know, you try and uphold with the clients that you work with? Yeah. So, I mean, I've had this week for GDPR reasons. Can't tell you any details, but you know, when clients come to me and, for example, at the time of this recording, markets are at record highs, okay? And clients want to come and they want to make decisions based on something they've read in the news, or they think there's going to be a crash because it's all-time highs or whatever it may be. And I will stop them and say, well, hang on a sec. You know, this is a 10-year plan. This is a 15-year plan. Why do we want to do this? In the same sense, when markets go down, you know, clients will panic and they'll say, oh my God, you know, we need to pull the money out quick before it happens. And when clients are left to their own devices, they make those mistakes and they shoot themselves in the foot. And my job is to say, hang on a sec, you're not doing that. You know, remember the plan, remember what we're trying to achieve. And we're not going to
We're not going to make any decision based on emotion. Take the emotion out, just inject logic. And even on the day-to-day stuff, so clients that are starting out, younger business owners, I mean, I get it, there's a lot going on. You've got loads to pay for, you're scrambling to build a business, cost of living, all that.
Yep.
And the first thing they often decide to stop doing is paying into whatever their financial plan is, whether it's a pension, whether it's an ISA or some sort of investment.
Yep.
It's the first thing they scrap. And I will challenge them and say, well, are you sure you want to do this? Have you thought about doing this? These are the implications it's going to have long term. Could you not cut back on other things? Maybe don't go out a few times a month. Maybe don't do these things. Maybe cut back on that because your future self will thank you for today. So there is an element of challenging clients and holding them accountable. And 9 times out of 10, they'll go, yeah, I'm glad. Thanks for that. Actually, I'm glad I didn't do what I was proposing to do. Because if I just sat back and was just a yes man, and just said, yeah, no problem, you can take that out, or you can do that. You'd be like, well, what am I even here for? I'm adding no value, really. Outside the advice, it's holding people accountable, I think, is really important.
Yeah, and it's having the authority over their impulse. And
and there's data to support that. So Vanguard, some of your listeners will know who they are. Basically, they're the kings of low cost investing. There's no advice element. It's all just low-fee, DIY, do-it-yourself investment. They ran an independent report on the value of advice, and their reports basically came back and suggested that clients that had advice, they got, on average, about 3% better return a year on their investments, on their financial planning. And a big part of that is that challenging aspect of what an advisor does, is to stop them from making silly decisions, is to advise them appropriately, is to make sure that they're making informed decisions. And a big thing is not let them do anything stupid, effectively, with their money. So yeah, to answer your question long-windedly, I think the behavioral finance thing is a big thing of what I do with clients. It's not just this is what you've got, this is how we're going to invest it, this is how we're going to structure it. It's helping you develop your relationship with your money as well.
Yeah, and again, that's the data. You can easily obtain the data yourself. You can manage that yourself. But that's why a lot of people come onto our program, is for that human interaction. Like you say, training programs, you can find 1 million online or through ChatGPT and AI.
I think the thing is the population as a whole. I don't want to get slain for this, but we're lazy as people. We're got enough going on. We've got families, we've got jobs, we've got all this. So we want someone to just hold us accountable in many ways. So in the army, I was a PTI, so my job was to train soldiers, right? I've had a coach in my career. I'm building a business, I'm seeing clients, I'm doing all that. I chose to have a coach, even though I've trained soldiers for years. I wanted a coach so they can hold me accountable. Just take care of everything, put a plan in place, track everything, tell me when I'm not doing what I need to do, give me a kick up the ass when I need it, and get me to where I want to be, sort of thing. And it's what I have with clients. They'll come to me as a business owner. They're very good at making money in their respective field. What they're not good at doing is managing it. So they say, right, this is where I am, this is what I'm trying to achieve. I want to leave you to put all the planning in place, make sure I'm making use of tax allowances, all the boring stuff, building my wealth year on year, stopping me from making bad decisions. Do it, just take care of it. And that's what my practice, that's what it does for clients effectively.
You're the long-term thinker, whereas the individual that you work with is the short-term thinker.
Yeah.
A guy that I might not work with that is managing things themselves, they might go on a keto diet or intermittent fasting diet, because that's very short-lived.
Quick,
it's not sustainable. It's trying to get a quick fix.
Yeah.
Whereas when a coach comes in and says, no, we want to make this more sustainable, you might want to lose a little bit less per week, but then you're going to be able to lose more over a longer period of time. Then you're road mapping it out for them then, so they've got the specific stepping stones, the milestones to basically hit in the future. And you can, as a coach or an advisor, you can predict that.
Yeah. And it's managing expectations as well, because I bet, how many times have you had a client come to you and say, right, I want to gain 10 kilograms of muscle in a month and lose 50 pounds of fat, something ridiculous. And you're just thinking, there's no way you're going to achieve that. Let's just scale everything back and kind of think. I get it with clients. Clients come to me and say, I want to double my money and do this and do that. It's not the way it works, right? It's managing expectations. And I think the problem is as well is we don't, as human beings, we can barely think about next week. You know, when we can't vision a year down the line or 6 months down the line, or we find it very difficult to. I mean, some people can, obviously, and they get to where they want to be, but the vast majority of people, I think it's in human nature. It's how we've survived. It's just thinking about the next day, and that's it. And, and just getting through that. Whereas you and I have to sit down and map out, for me, decades, for you at least a couple of years, 6 months minimum, whatever it's going to be, to get them to where they need to be.
It needs to be realistic, like the example you said, for someone that might come to me and say they want to gain 10 kilos of muscle in a month. They might also say from their time management, I can train 5-6 days a week, because the motivation is up here.
Yeah,
it's like if you had an initial consultation and they're gassed, I'm going to be making this amount of money, and people are like, let me throw 600 quid in, and really they might only be able to afford like 200 quid. Jack's actually my own advisor, and like when we had our first meeting, we had like a good chat, didn't we, about what is actually going to be realistic for me to commit to.
Exactly.
Maybe start on the lower end,
100%.
and then you can always build up in the future. If maybe my income.
Because you got to start somewhere.
Yeah,
you always got to start somewhere. And for me, going back to the behavioural finance thing, is I really try hard to make things habitual. So you just make it the norm. It's just part of your habit. You set it and forget it. You just get used to it. Then you start we had our initial charts, and we could have really thrown the kitchen sink at it. And I said, let's just take a step back. Let's just start off small. Let's get you used to it. Let's get you understanding the process and, just taking your time with it. And we'll build up, and I do that with a lot of clients, because it makes it a lot easier for you to start committing to things, weather that storms, understand how markets go up and down, all that. And then you've kind of trained yourself in the same, again, going back to the fitness, you've trained yourself to be able to get up in the morning, put your trainers on, go for a run, go to the gym, do all these sort of things. You just commit into that cause. And I always find with clients is you start off small, but you'd be amazed how quickly you start to see results. You blink, you blink, and a year goes by, and you go, "Bloody hell, I didn't even realise, but I've got this now sitting over there." I didn't even realise. In the same sense that you start your fitness journey, and you might say to a client, right, well, you can only commit because you're so busy 2 days a week, 3 days a week. 6 months goes by, all of a sudden they're in a completely different position than they were when they started. It's the same thing. That's why it's funny, because it is so interrelatable. Like the fitness and the finance, honestly, it's crazy. It is crazy.
But like going back to the training element, if someone commits to too much, it's going to help with your retention for clients as well. If I had a client that starts out and then I don't hold them accountable to what I think is realistic and sustainable for them, and say, right, okay, we'll train it 5-6 days a week, and then 2 weeks in they're like, fuck, I can't manage this. They're just going to then they're going to bin it. Me and say, I can't do this.
They're going to bin it.
I think that's the expectancy, or that's like what everyone does, or it's not. It's adaptable for each individual.
And the thing is, I think with that is, your client they'll thank you for it, because I can give you a scenario. So at the start of the year, Trump announced a load of tariffs and blah, 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 right? Yeah. Which basically sent markets nosediving for a brief period of time. And what happened, what he essentially said was, it's going to be more expensive for global trade to happen. The market is one big emotional entity. It's human beings making decisions, and that spooked markets. Markets went down. I had a client ring me up who was just on the edge of retirement, and he had a sizable pot of money that we were looking after for him. And he was shouting at me, basically saying, Trump is XYZ, he's going to ruin everything. I need to fully encash my investments now before the markets go any worse, right? I said to him, absolutely not. There's a duty of care that we have for you. You're acting on emotion. We need to think about this logically, etc., etc. You're going to pay a huge amount of taxes if you fully encash. You're going to realize your losses, because a loss is only a loss if you pull your money out, right? If you let it recover, you're fine. All these things. I spent about 45 minutes on the phone, almost shouting back at this client because he weren't listening to me, right? And in the end, I got him to not do what he was trying to achieve, right? I did the calculations after the phone call just to cover my own back. He'd have lost about £130,000 if I'd have just crumbled and said, okay, fine, You're the boss. You're the client. Client knows best. You just, we'll just do it for you. 130 grand. He got off the phone fuming. I said, we're not doing what we want to do. Calmed him down. About a month later, markets hadn't just recovered, but they were above where he was pre-Trump making those announcements. Lo and behold, obviously, he rang me up and said, thanks, Jack. Really appreciate, thanks for. And sometimes you have to be hard-faced as an advisor. That's what you're there. Because for me, my clients are paying me to do that for them. It's not just give them the advice and guidance. It's to make sure that they're not doing something like that. In the same way that your coaching service does the same, and my coach did it to me when I was not doing what I was supposed to do. My coach was pretty ruthless, to be honest. I was like, oh my god, you know what I mean? I'm a bit scared here. I feel a bit crappy, but he told me how it was, and I respect that far more than if he just went, oh, you've not hit your steps today, you've not done your thing, yeah, whatever, yeah, maybe we'll try again next week. He was like, you need to get a grip of yourself.
Well, you wouldn't get results then.
Exactly.
You wouldn't have a reputation in your field.
Yeah,
You've got to be super hard-faced.
Exactly that, and that's a story that I tell a lot, because 130 grand's not slim change to just lose, based on a decision off emotion. And that's something I'm quite proud of, and I'm sure you've probably got loads of stories like that where you've given your clients a kick up the ass. It's what needs to happen.
Yeah, and that was for me, like for my personality type, or just me as a person, I'm a little bit more sensitive, like a little bit. I like to see all like my clients as friends, as mates. So sometimes having those tough conversations,
difficult.
It's pretty difficult. Yeah. Would you say that's like if there's negatives to what?
I think because I'm the same. Like, I'm super approachable. I like to be mates with all my clients. I like to speak to them outside of work. I like to speak to them. Often some of my best clients that I have the best relationship with, we'll have a meeting. We'll do 20 minutes on finance, 40 minutes talking about everything else. Yeah. So when those difficult conversations do come, it can be difficult and it can be awkward, and you have to remind yourself that you're there on a professional level, not as a mate. And yeah, I think that just comes part with it. It's probably a downfall of myself that I'm probably too friendly with clients. But then again, that's why I get a lot of referrals, and that's why a lot of people choose to work with me, because it's not just a boring finance talk every time we have a meeting. There's rapport there, there's trust there. It's how you build trust, isn't it, at the end of the day?
Relating this to sort of, I suppose, investing, it's sort of a bit like emotional calculated risk, isn't it? Because you pick and choose the right time, I suppose, for when you might have those conversations.
Yeah,
I suppose.
Yeah,
it could either go one or two ways. Like if I had a client that is maybe slacking, they've not lost weight in 4 weeks, and I say I have to just tell them the truth, be brutal and blunt with them.
And how do you position that? Do you just get straight into it, or do you?
No. Like we have, I'll ask them how they are. But if they've been ghosting and they've not been responding for a while, it's more a case of like, let's get on a call. I want to see how you are first, right? And then I can try and support you as the best as I can, so they can utilize the service that they're paying for. Again, otherwise it's just a wasted investment. Yeah. Can't remember what I was going to say now.
So you were saying about the difficult conversations that you line yourself up for.
Yeah.
How do you approach that when it comes to?
Yeah. So like if a client jumps on a call and they've been going through a lot of stuff, at least then I'm aware of it and I can support them through it. But if they've just been avoiding that sort of conflict or communication, then I have to tell them straight. We need to check in so you can get the most out of this service. I'm not a dickhead. I'm not gonna be like super passive aggressive.
Yeah.
Because that's just not me. But again, it's just being real and telling them the truth. But that could go one or two ways. That could make them think, you know what, I appreciate you being truthful and honest. This is what I'm paying for. Or it can make them think, oh, fuck this guy. I'm not paying this. I'm quitting. And then jumping off.
So when you're vetting someone, because I vet prospective clients, I have a qualifying criteria now. Who I bring in, who I don't bring in. I believe that every single person in the UK has a financial advice need, and I think that every single person in the UK should have financial advice. Unfortunately, not everybody can get financial advice, so I vet who I bring in. Yeah. Going back to like the difficult conversations you have, is that part of your process? Are you thinking if this goes right, okay, so I'm speaking to this guy, I'm going to feel a vibe for him or her. How do I think a difficult conversation is going to go? Do you factor that in to the initial onboarding service, or what's the ideal?
So when people sign up, they're on the questionnaire. They'll fill out obviously all the information, how they've like where they're at mental states. We've got the mental health service, you know, so where they're at psychologically, how many times they can train a week, all the food, all that information, you know, that's going to help us actually program their training and the nutrition. But there's also 1 or 2 questions around like, right, what is your personality type? What kind of coach do you want? Do you want someone that's going to be more empathetic, or do you want someone that's going to be more directive and straight to the point, no fluff, no bullshit? And that based off like categorization for what coach that person is going to work with and how like they're distributed is based off pretty much that last question for like, again, if they're going to gel well with their coach. It's not always going to be right, because some people might put what they think they need, but they don't actually need that. But I'm open to working with anyone that's willing to change. It's a mutual respect. As long as, you know, they keep me informed, communicate, which is the most important thing on our program, then I'm going to show that respect back. But then, you know, like for me, who's someone that's so passionate about what they do as a coach, training, nutrition, fitness, helping people, getting the result, you know, it's more frustrating to have people that will pay for a service that they are not utilizing.
I like what you just said then about the questionnaire where clients will put what they think they know about themselves, and then they get on that fitness journey, and then they learn new things about what they actually are. Need. I find that interesting.
But you'd mentioned, you know, that you think everyone in the UK has a need for financial advice. Now, I wanted to go into a little bit about the actual health side of things. People investing in a coach. Is it a necessity? Is it a luxury? Should people pay to have a coach? Because, you know, like I was saying in the introduction, you know, the mindset traits around finance planning and training, like I said, they're so interlinked, it's crazy, you know, like for discipline and it impacting, rippling into other areas of people's lives. You know, when they focus first and foremost on themselves, then they start to have less takeaways, have less nights out drinking, and then already that from that, they're starting to save money. Do you know what I mean? So what's your standpoint on that?
So I think that everybody should have a financial advisor or get financial advice at least once in their life. I think the problem is we don't get that, and I'll explain a little bit why. So firstly, it's not in our system as Brits. It's not really taught in schools. Now it is starting to come in even in primary school level now, which is fantastic. But you and I, we didn't have money lessons in school or anything like that. We don't talk about it at the dinner table. We don't talk about it with our friends. It's a taboo subject, right? So we keep our cards close to our chest as Brits when it comes to money. It's uncouth to talk about it, all this stuff. So that then limits how far you can go from a conversation socially around money. And then so that's the first hurdle. The second hurdle is that although everybody probably has a financial planning need and needs some advice, the problem is that commercially it needs to be viable for a financial advice business to take a client on, right? So I would say that anyone with less than 50k in savings can probably go out and get the guidance that they need and should pursue that. I think once you get to around 50k mark, or your business is turning over a certain amount, or you're self-employed, whatever, that's when you're going to see the value for the cost of that advice that you're going to get to benefit you, right? So what you've got nothing at the bottom, a bit of guidance in the middle, and then that's where you get the real value once you get to a certain level. And that is why the rich get richer, you know, people's wealth increases because they've got a team of advisors around them, teaching them or advising them on, you know, the tax liabilities that they can offset, the tax allowances, investment planning, all this sort of stuff, right?
Yep.
So where I see people really take off is I have a lot of younger business owners where, as I said, people are really good in the UK at making money in their own fields. They're not good at managing it. And I don't mean day-to-day budgeting. I mean actually managing it and putting a plan in place. What I see is a lot of my coaches are more than happy to come to me and they don't care about, the cost of advice. They see it as an investment. They don't see it as a cost. That differs, I think, from the rest of my clientele, because they go, I'm not at a level yet where I want to pay somebody to advise me and to manage things, right? And they think they can do it themselves, and then they fall into those traps of, making bad decisions and emotions and all that. So I think that everybody should invest in an advisor at least once. It doesn't necessarily mean working with them on an ongoing basis. I think once you've got your business to a certain level, absolutely. You pay an accountant. You pay an accountant for their professional advice to help you with your taxes and all that. Every business owner, I think, should have an accountant on one side of the table and a financial advisor on the other. Okay, the two work together, and that will mean that you've got a team of professionals looking after you. Going back to the coach thing, it is apparent when I think about my client bank, all the coaches are more than happy to get me. And they all seem to have their own coaches as well in their own fitness, which I find really, really interesting, because in my mind, I'm thinking, well, that'd be like me having a financial advisor.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, obviously, I don't have a financial advisor. I manage my own affairs, but I think it's quite, I look up to that in many ways in the coaching space, that a coach who's looking after his own clients will have their own coach to hold them accountable, sort of thing, which is really, really interesting. So all the coaches I look after, just because of they've got a great personality, they're really likable, they've got loads of work ethic, they've built really successful businesses.
Yep.
And they've gone, I need somebody to help me with all this. Almost accidentally, I've started making loads of money. I've now got probably a big tax bill that I don't know what to do with, and how can I offset some of that, and what should I be doing with all this money now that I've got it? That classic coaching world, 10K a month, that seems to be the pinnacle that everyone wants to get to. Well, that's fine, but then what do you do when you get to 10K? Because 10 grand a month is a lot of money to start turning over. And if you're not spending it all, what are you doing with it? And that's where they take it seriously and they say, right, I need to go and speak to someone. I need to sit with a professional. I need to get that guidance. And I think that's admirable. I think that they're willing to just sit and just absorb information and be a student in a different field. You know what I mean? So I hope that answers your question. But yeah, I think everyone should get advice. Not everyone can, but there's guidance out there. And for the people that are in a position that are doing well, 100% you need an advisor in your corner.
Or coach.
Coach/advisor, yeah.
But for people that maybe, like, I know you'd said like coaches get coaching or need coaching, which I agree with as well. I've had help in the past. A lot of the coaches in Physique Academy work with coaches, again, for their own accountability, but more for like the general public, or for other company owners, business owners, CEOs that, maybe a dad of threes, super busy lives, have a lot of stress on the plate. Are there any signs of, like, in terms of their own habits and success, have you got like guys that will focus more on fitness, and you see that in like their financial resilience as well?
Yeah, I do see that. So like, I'll go out and see a prospect, and they may have contacted me on the phone, and then, such and such a body's referred you. I'd love to set up a meeting. I go see them. They walk through the door, and the shirt is nice and snug fit, and the chest is out, and they're looking good, and they've got, great skin, and they're glowing, and they look like they're working out. I know immediately that person is going to be easy to work with, because they've already got discipline instilled. They're already used to routine. They're used to just rinsing and repeating. They go to the gym 4 or 5 times a week. The planning is the same. They hold themselves accountable. They just listen. They understand the plan, and they know how to execute.
Carry themselves with aura.
Yeah, exactly. They just walk into the room. I'm like, yeah, this guy gets it straight away. But they can execute. They can plan. They understand. They can take the direction. All that sort of stuff. Someone walks through the room and they're a bit all over the place, and as awful as it says, they're a bit out of shape, and they're not. I know that they're going to be a ball ache to get responses from. They might be late for meetings, and it sounds terrible, right? But experience tells me that's normally the situation.
First impressions are more important than
massively. The first impression thing obviously counts, because you walk through the room, you got your chest out. I'm like, yeah, this guy means business, absolutely. But what I'm saying is the people that stick to fitness, or that are into fitness, and I'm not just saying this for the sake of the podcast, from experience, are much better to work with and just get it and are able to stick and have long-term mindset. The people that don't, they're the ones that are a bit scatty and a bit unorganized, and they may start but they can't commit, and they're the ones that you have issues with and the conversations
like
with.
Retention, or again, like going back to the emotional impulse thing.
Yeah.
That want that quick dopamine and serotonin.
Yeah.
If they've had a stressful day.
They want a silver bullet. They just want you to come in, fix everything overnight like that. And I have to say, look, if we want to get you to where all these things that you've told me you want to achieve, this is the journey that we're going to go on. And that often sometimes isn't the answer that they want. Whereas someone that's just used to just long-term planning with business, with fitness, whatever, they're like, yeah, great, let's get started. Let's move. Yeah. Let's start going.
And even for me, when I'm training consistently, I notice that I'm sharper. I've got more confidence. I'm more creative. I'm more like patient with clients. Yeah. And again, with like your finances, that's again going to ripple into that. You're going to be more patient with.
Well, it's not just that. It's like what's the point in building loads of wealth, right? If your health's on its ass, what is the point? If you can't go out and enjoy yourself and do the things that you want to do, as a 55-year-old bloke, if you can't, dive off the back of a boat or, do all these cool things and fly around in your sports car and enjoy it and look young and feel good, there's literally no point. Would you rather be unhealthy and in a terrible way and have loads of money in the bank? Or would you rather be fit and have no money? You know what I mean? I guarantee that the person that's unhealthy would trade, the unhealthy billionaire would trade all the money he has to be fit and active. 100%. Like that I could probably guarantee.
Or have the family if they've no family.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So it's either a family thing or it's a fitness thing, right? So what you want to be doing is doing both of those things, focusing on your fitness and focusing on building your wealth, and then you can enjoy the two intertwined in your later years.
Yeah. Sometimes I talk with clients as if the body was their own business. It's something that you scale over time. If you wouldn't invest in it, you'd be running it a loss. Yeah.
So there's a really interesting kind of scenario. So Warren Buffett is basically the god of investing, right? And he went into a university and he basically he delivered a speech and he said, if you can only have one car, when you get your driving test, you can have one car, right? And you can pick whatever car you want. Yeah. Students, cogs start turning, I'm going to get a Ferrari, I'm going to get this, I'm going to get that. But you can only have that car for the rest of your life, and you've got to run it and you've got to maintain it and you've got to make it work. And he's basically saying that's your body. It's your decision on what body you want, right? But you've got to have that body for the rest of your days. So you need to pick carefully, right? Because if you pick a Ferrari that is mint in the first couple of years but has loads of reliability issues down the line, you're going to think, why did I pick this Ferrari? Fuming. Yeah. Whereas if you just pick like a Toyota, it's just some Japanese saloon that lasts forever, you put 200,000 miles on it and you're good to go, you're going to pick that, right? So he's basically getting at is you've got one body, look after it, make the right decisions, and you won't regret it. And the money thing is a separate thing. The health thing is first. The money comes after.
But again, that's going to correlate you just by. I've seen with clients that just by focusing on themselves. I've had loads of clients with that have started businesses. Like one of my clients, Lucas, he's now a CEO of his company, like building his way up.
Nice.
I've worked with him for 2 years, so I've seen that growth over the last 2 years, and just by him starting with himself and starting to get more into like healthy habits, journaling, meditation, waking up early, all that sort of stuff, getting his energy right, because energy creates energy. He's then that's paralleled into like his work commitment, like say his own confidence, and then he's going to carry himself better as a CEO.
And it gives you that clarity, doesn't it? If you've got a fit mind and a fit body, you've got clarity to plan and make other decisions and all the rest of it.
Okay, so moving on to the next part, mate.
Go on.
Is there a lesson that you think you have learned from finance that could maybe help people stay like consistent with relating to fitness, do you think?
That's a good question.
I can go back to it if you want.
So it's it sounds dead easy, and I know it's easier said than done.
Yeah.
It is simple. It's I'd say hard work with all things finance. You know, your body is your income, innit? You know, you work to earn an income and run your business and all that. I'd say it's hard work. I'd say it's long-term thinking, and it's resilience. Mm-hmm. They're the three things. And I could be talking about money or fitness in both of those things. Mm-hmm. The hard work, you got to go out and you got to do the training. Mm-hmm. You've got to work hard on your business. You've got to get through it. You know, the long-term mindset is have a vision and just keep that vision alive. And the resilience is when you can't be asked getting out of bed and you don't want to go to the gym and you don't, or you're feeling a bit sluggish and you don't want to go do that session or do that check-in with you or pay into that investment that month because, you know, you want to go and do this or do that, or markets are down and you're getting a bit worried. Just keep on going.
Keep with it.
Just stay resilient. Just keep on going. Keep working. Keep the vision alive. Stay resilient.
We've spoken about like people potentially going too extreme, maybe wanting to overcommit. But on the flip side of that, have there been people that maybe are too reserved, like too safe, like they maybe just want to keep the money in the savings?
Yeah. So that's a great point that you bring up. So obviously, when I'm advising clients, the plan, especially when it comes to investment planning, needs to be appropriate for the client. So like you do a questionnaire around mentality, mindset, personality stuff, I do a lot of questioning around attitude towards risk. Yeah, because when we're advising that a client invests into X, Y, Z, that risk profile has to be aligned to the client. Now, if a client comes to me and they're doing very, very well and they're earning, 5 to 10 grand a month and they're doing really well, but they're super conservative and they're reserved and they don't want to take any risk, and we have a conversation around risk and they're young and they've got 10, 20, 30 years to build this wealth, I will 100% challenge them and say, well, let's just think about this a little bit differently. Now, that means that there's going to have to be an education element to it. So I'm going to have to explain the behaviors of different asset classes and how they perform and the pros and cons and all that. Talk about the importance of time and compounding growth and all the rest of it. It's my job to get that client to make an informed decision. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to sit there and go, right, you want to be really conservative. You don't really want to take any risk, but you want to build wealth. Okay, fine, just do that. And it's just not going to happen. I will challenge them and say, well, actually, okay, that's not going to work. If you want to get there, we're going to have to do X, Y, Z, and we're going to have to do this. And it's about me embedding that knowledge into that client so that they can feel comfortable to go, okay, yeah, maybe I've misunderstood what I thought I was thinking. Oh, yeah, I've changed my mindset, actually. I understand that now. So I'm now okay to take a little bit more risk or to follow your plans and to understand it a little bit more.
It is a risk, isn't it? Like, I feel like a lot of 100%. People want that emergency. I mean, having an emergency fund, is important. But I think people maybe like there's a lot of fear because of like how maybe the volatility. And a lot of it's from just misunderstanding. But the UK is terrible for it. You go to America, everyone invests. It's like the norm. Everyone. Most of our clients.
Exactly. They invest, whether it's in markets or in knowledge or whatever it's going to be. They understand the principle of risk and reward and putting money into something to get something out. Speculate to accumulate all that. In the UK, we're just terrified. We all hoard cash that gets like 1-2% a year, and that's it. And that's as far as our financial planning goes. If we don't take advice. Mm-hmm. So. And the big problem is things like, we all know someone in the pub that recommended to do something. They invest in one thing, which is a terrible idea. There's no diversification. So, they go, someone in the pub told me to do this. So I invested in this single share. Okay, it went down immediately. I panicked. I sold it. I lost money. And now, to me, investing is a scam and it's gambling and all the rest of it. So it's just a lack of education. And that, again, the onboarding process for a client is spending a series of meetings before a client makes a single investment. We'll have had 3 or 4 meetings. Like yourself, you and I had 2 or 3 meetings talking about asset classes, markets, how they behave, all that other stuff, so that you could then go, okay, I'm now comfortable to take that element of risk, which, by the way, was aligned to your attitude to risk and all the rest of it, so that you could feel comfortable knowing you're doing what you're doing and why you're doing it and what those risks involved are. Mm-hmm. And you are so right to say that most of the population, we're just terrified of risk.
This country, mate.
Yeah. Yeah. But you might get that on your side with clients because they might come to you and go, "I'm not getting a coach, waste of money. What am I going to get out of that?" You know, he's just going to tell me, he's just going to put together a basic plan that he's got off ChatGPT and charge me a fortune, and I'm not going to get anything out of it.
Understand it. It's, like you say, it's educating them on why it's going to work for them. Not necessarily. I mean, it is technically selling it, but it's not like you're hard selling it. You're just telling them the facts.
At the end of the day, it's a service, so you're still selling something. Let's not beat around the bush. You know, I'm selling my service, my knowledge, my you know, what I deliver to clients, the value I add. You know, I'm selling a service to that client. But, you know, I was apprehensive when I got a coach. You know, I'll be honest, I was like, go on, I'll just do it. You know, I'm not. But once I actually got into it, and it was the big value for me was the accountability thing, the getting a kick up the arse. And then halfway through, I thought, yeah, I get it. You know, I was losing the weight I wanted to lose. I was really sticking to the plan, this and that. And that made me understand, okay, yeah, I get it. I understand. And the thing I always find, my client retention is really, really good. And that's because once they've taken that step and they've worked with me, because the way I work with clients is an ongoing relationship. So it's not transactional. So it's not like, you know, this is what I want to achieve. There's your plan. Here's a fee. See you later. It's once you become onboarded to Gotham as a client, we do regular review meetings every 6 to 12 months, review your investments, review your portfolio, review tax legislation. So you just constantly, and it means that the client stays on the plan, right? But what I'm getting at is the clients don't go anywhere once they become clients because they see the value of what they're getting. And they all often say the same thing is, I was apprehensive, you know, I didn't really know if I wanted to move forwards. When I got introduced to you, I was kind of a bit on the fence. Once they've got over that fence, got over that hurdle, they're not going anywhere. Same probably with clients that, like I was, I'll probably get a coach again in the future because I see the value.
You're training now.
I am. Don't do this to me on the don't do this to me on the camera, right? Don't do this to me on the camera. I found, how old are you now?
I'm 25.
Right. So when I was in the army, I could train twice a day, no dramas, barely any aches and pains.
Yeah, I know what
get out, get ahead.
Yeah.
You know, now that I'm in my 30s, I can't do 5 days a week. You know what I mean? So I aim to do probably 3 to 4 times a week. And if I can do that, I'm happy. Yeah. Building a business is hard work. I try and commit an hour, 4 days a week, where that's my hour. And I find if you schedule around that, you can get it done. Sometimes I can't, but that's what I try.
Yeah, the whole thing with time here. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know a lot of people are going to be struck for time if they're like new dads and they're trying to build and scale a business. Blah blah blah. And I actually had a conversation today with a client where we sat down in a meeting. I said, right, I want you to walk me through your day from when you wake up to the time that you go to
That's
sleep.
a great exercise.
Yeah, and then
because then immediately they're going to go, oh yeah, I've got all this time actually.
Just start making up things. I think I'm walking my dog. Yeah, I don't have it that time.
I had to clean the car and I had to do this.
7 days a week. But yeah, like if they literally put it down on paper, a bit like journaling, you know, if you get it out of your mind and you put it down on paper, then you start to say, all right, I've got this time in, but it's just then actually actioning it, executing it, committing to it. But anyway, talk me through the onboarding with Gotham. You know, like, so if you've got a new client, like for example, when I first got it reached out to you, got in touch with you, I came into Manchester, we had a sit down. Like, talk me through from the moment someone reaches out or you reach out to them, whatever way it is, how they become on board.
So how it works is I build my business almost entirely through referrals. So I hate networking. I'm going to be honest with you. It's just a bunch of people in a room trying to sell to each other. I can't do it. It's too fake for me. So I rely heavily on referrals. So that's how I build my business. And I do client events and I do other bits and stuff like that to, you know, bring plus ones and that.
Yep.
But normally what happens is a client will reach out to me, or a prospective client will reach out to me and say, such and such a body's referred you, you know, they've spoken highly of you. I'd like to have a conversation. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have what I call my initial meeting, super relaxed. I think the world of finance is very scary. It can be intimidating. So I try and make that initial contact just as relaxed as possible. You know, there's no kind of feeling of an obligation. There's no sort of, oh God, I've got to move forwards with this guy. It's literally just a chilled out conversation. And it's just an opportunity for me to introduce myself, talk about a bit about Gotham, the services that we do there, what kind of clients we work with, the FCA regulatory bits that I have to say as an introduction, say I'm regulated and everything. And then I just hand over to them and I ask a super loaded question. I just say, what do you want to get out of this meeting? Yeah, and I just sit back and then they'll just tell me stuff. And if I feel like they're not telling me enough, I say, tell me a little bit more about that, elaborate. And that just, and I say openly in the meeting, this is an opportunity for me to vet you and you to vet me, to see if we're right for each other. Because like I said before, not everyone, unfortunately, is going to be the right client for me, or I'm going to be the right advisor for them equally. So we have initial chats. That's kind of like the vetting process. The client gets to know me, I get to know them. If there's rapport, if we were a right fit for each other, if I see that this is someone I can help, then what I do is I will book in what I call my fact-find meeting. Confidential financial review. It's basically just, we're going to put everything on the table. I want you to tell me everything about your finances.
Can I just interrupt you?
Go on.
I was going to say that's probably the thing that people fear the most. I'd say.
Agreed. So I warn that client. So I will say, look, I'm going to ask some questions in this meeting. Okay. And you might go, why on earth are you asking me that? And it's because the more a client can tell me, the better I can advise them. If you just hold a load of stuff back, it's in the same way that you get onboarded. If a client just holds loads of stuff back and you put a plan together that's wrong for them, you're the bad guy. Yeah. So I'll say, look, I'm going to ask loads of questions. We're going to talk about everything: debts, income, outgoing, assets, everything. Paint me a really clear picture. That allows me to then identify all the areas of need, the gaps in that person's plan. I'll then say, right, I've identified X, Y, Z. These are what I think are the most important things we need to be tackling first. What do you think? And they might go, yeah, I agree. Or they might go, well, actually, I think this is the most important. And I might challenge them, and I might, whatever. Because we're not going to boil the ocean in one go. Most people have multiple areas of need. So we're going to prioritize what's what. From there, I'll then go away, build my initial recommendations. So I'll build clients a big, I call it a wealth tracker or a cash flow model. So we build everything into their assets, debts, incomes, all that sort of stuff. And I build my initial recommendations. So I then go back to the client and say, right, from what you've told me, these are the things we need to focus on. These are your issues. This is how we could solve them. This is what we should do to solve them. And this is what it would look like over the long term. Yeah. And then we just start to build on that. So if the client says, yeah, I'm happy with all that, I go away and obviously put all that advice together, do all the compliance. It's all my advice is guaranteed, it's protected by the Financial Services Compensation Scheme, all that good stuff. And we just build on there. So we might put the first element of planning in place. So client might come to me and say, I've got 100 grand in the bank. I thought I was doing the right thing, saving. I've realised now inflation's through the roof and that money's just getting eroded. I need to think about putting it to work tax efficiently, blah, blah, blah. We'll go and work on that first. Yeah. Build that into the plan, and then we can build on that as we go. And then from there, what I'll normally do is see a client twice a year, one around tax year end, one around doing a full annual review meeting as well.
Yeah. I think inflation isn't too bad at the moment, is it? I think I saw that
it's coming back. So I think it's important to understand what inflation is. So all inflation is it's too much money in a system. Okay, so when there's a lot of money sloshing around a system, okay, prices go up because people are fighting. There's more money than there are products and services. When there's not a lot of money in the system, prices come down because people are fighting for the money that's in the system. Okay, so what you saw off the back of COVID is money was just handed out left, right, and centre. Furloughs, grants, business help schemes, all that. So there's money everywhere, right? Where does that money go? It goes either into savings accounts. Yeah. So in COVID, we had the highest amount of personal savings since the 70s. It goes into assets. House prices went through the roof because everyone realised that they wanted more space because everyone was locked down. So they're going to go buy houses because they've got all this money that they've got, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of money in the system. What they then do is they increase interest rates.
That was the increase in 22.
Yeah, that's right. So the reason why they raise interest rates is to incentivize people to save and not borrow. Because if you're getting a better interest rate, if you can get 4, 5, 6% on your savings, that's a zero risk investment to you. So it encourages people not to go and spend, but to save. So it's pulling money out of the system. Yeah, so that helps bring prices down. So like I said before, if there's less money in the system, there's more people trying to fight for that money. So they reduce prices to try and incentivize purchases. The other thing it does is it stops people from going out and borrowing, so it slows the economy down. So you're not gonna be as quick to go and get a mortgage because your rates might be higher, or to go and finance a car or whatever it may be. And that's what's been happening over the last couple of years. So inflation sky is like 11% peak. I would say it was probably higher than that in real terms. Interest rates go up to try and cool that down, and now we're on the back end of that. So inflation's been slowly coming down. It's peaked again recently, but interest rates have also been come down as well. Yeah, with that. So it's a cyclical thing, and it's good and bad. It's good because when interest rates go up, we all get better savings rates, but it means that our interest on our mortgage is more, etc., etc. When it comes down, it's good because it makes people go, well, cash isn't really performing now, so I need to put that money to work. So I need to invest it or whatever, and it means that the interest on your debt comes down as well, which is good.
Speaking of that, with the cost of living crisis, with the ever-growing increase, of that.
Speaking to a girl the other day, she called it a cosy living crisis. So I was like, wow, okay.
where should people, in your opinion, again, disclaimer,
absolutely,
this is not specific financial advice, this is just general insight, but what would you do based off your knowledge, mate, and from
okay, so this is guidance. 100%. It's not a question of where, it's a question of how, I would say, right? So when I'm sitting with clients, we do basic fundamental planning. So the first thing you want to tackle in this current economic climate is get an emergency fund behind you. We are going through a period of not kind of knowing what's going on. So having cash on reserve is critical. Yeah, you might lose your job tomorrow. Your clients might leave you, or if you're running a business, whatever. So you always want 3 to 6 months worth of cash on deposit. That's your emergency fund. That's your sleep at night money. That's your, safety blanket. From there, you want to be utilising the tax advantage things in the UK. So the first thing you want to be thinking about is ISAs. Okay, so when I'm talking about an ISA, I'm talking about it in the form of a tax wrapper. I'm not talking about your high street bank promises you 4 or 5% and then penalises you if you take it out within 12 months, right? We're not talking about that. All an ISA is a tax wrapper. So anything in it will grow free of income and capital gains tax. Really good tool for people to use to build wealth because it's accessible, it's flexible, no tax. You don't have to worry about exit penalties or any withdrawal charges. It's like a bank account, but for investments.
Yeah.
That's the next step after your emergency fund. So anything over and above an emergency fund, you want to start channeling that money into an ISA. And I say ISAs first because the tax advantage, you can do up to £20,000 a year and they're flexible. Okay. Alarmingly, only about 15% of adults in the UK have a stocks and shares ISA. Okay. Which is crazy. Now, almost all of my clients have stocks and shares ISAs. And almost all of them max them out every year, which is 20 grand. So it's a really good tool to build wealth. Okay. We are talking about a stocks and shares ISA. So you have an investment portfolio, sits in an ISA, grows free of tax, and it's accessible. Okay. So that's the how, not the where, but the how. So that's how you would structure it. So it's all about saving tax. A big element of wealth management is mitigating as much tax as possible. There's a fine line between avoiding and evasion. We're trying to avoid tax. The next step from there is pensions. They're a critical tool when it comes to investing and building wealth. Now, why is that? Okay, because you're young, you're 25, you hear the word pension, you go, that's like decades away, not interested. Yeah, don't care, not interested, boring. But when you understand what a pension does for you as a tool, you start to think, yeah, that actually makes sense. So if I came to you and I said, listen, mate, I've got this bank account, anything you put in it, you're going to get 25% immediately. You don't even have to wait 12 months. You put £1,000 in, you're going to get £1,250 immediately. You'd be snatching my hand off, right? That is a pension. Okay, so how does that work? So we have a big savings problem in the UK. We don't save enough for ourselves, and we all think that the state pension is going to protect us and we're going to live on that. Absolutely not. Okay, so to incentivize the British public to save, the government gives us tax relief on contributions, and that is in the form of 25%. It says 20%, but the way that you gross it up is basically 25%. So if you set up a private pension and you put 10 grand in it, 12.5 goes in the pot immediately. That's before it's even been invested. So a pension is also a tax wrapper. So anything in it will grow free of income and capital gains tax. Yeah. So what you're starting to see is we're starting to layer up cash, tax advantage ISAs, pensions for long term with the tax relief. So not only do you get the tax relief in a pension, if you're a business owner, it is a key part of your planning, because you can move money from your business into your private pension, pay for it with business money, and then offset those contributions off the business's earnings and save corporation tax. So it's not just a long-term wealth building tool, but it's also over the short term, it's a tax mitigation tool. Yeah. Now there's other things you can do in between. Okay. Sorry, I'm just going to have a big bang on there. There's things like property, and there's alternatives, and there's stuff like that. But from a basic planning perspective, a 3 to 6 months emergency fund, just paying regularly, start small. You know, if you did £100, £200, £300 a month into some sort of stocks and shares ISA, and then funding a private pension or a workplace pension as well. Yeah, because a lot of employed individuals are automatically enrolled in a workplace scheme. Already, if you have those three things in place, you're probably way ahead of most adults in the UK, alarmingly. Yeah, that's where you start. As I said earlier, the more money you have, the more complex your planning needs become. But those are the basic principles of like putting some sort of plan in place as an adult in the UK.
So a lot of this, like influencers, would basically make their own crypto. Oh, guys, you need to put your money in this, and then like,
blow it up. A rug pull.
There was that woman from the United States that did like a rug pull last year.
Oh yeah, it's Hot Tubby Girl. Yeah. Obviously, I don't know fully who the Hot Tubby Girl is.
But yeah, that was like a big
big thing. And basically, what you're doing is you're creating hype to push up the price of an asset to then get out and then just before everyone else. You know, this happens it's called insider trading. And there's other rug pull is obviously the social media term for it and stuff like that. So a speculative asset is the crypto space right now. Now, admittedly, like you said, a lot of that hype has died off. There's still, I still think that I think the technology behind it has relevance. And the blockchain and all that sort of stuff. Where you've got to be careful is all the other stuff that comes with it, all the other noise, like what you've just said. I think whenever you're investing in alternative assets, alternatives, they don't just make up crypto. So that could be gold and silver, that could be art, that could be wine, classic cars, watches, whatever, right? And alternatives have a space in a portfolio, yeah? And the speculative assets, and you take that, going back to the risk and reward, you include them in your investments knowing there's a risk involved. So I don't advise on cryptocurrencies just because they're unregulated. My only guidance on crypto is only ever expose yourself to an amount that you're willing to lose. And
also, again, it's a bit like what you were saying with like the larger companies in the AI sector. You know, it's like Bitcoin, Ethereum. You put money in that it's still possible, but it's less likely that that's going to absolutely.
So clients say to me all the time, Jack, what's the chance of me losing all my money in investing? Right. Well, when we put together a portfolio, there'll be minimum 1,000 different companies in that portfolio, and then other asset classes as well. So you've got to think, okay, so I'm exposed to 1,000 of the largest, most successful companies in the world right now, right? So for me to, as an investor, I'm talking about the client situation here. For me to lose all of my money, 1,000 of the biggest, most successful companies in the world would have to go bust on the same day at the same time, right? Very unlikely that's going to happen. If it did, I'd be more worried about what I'm going to eat tomorrow, sort of thing. Because we're talking like nuclear war level things for the market to just go to zero. Yeah. So that's why remaining diversified is really important. Now, buying it speculative assets or buying singular shares, you are gambling. Let's not be around the bush. You are taking a risk with the hope that you're going to get a good result, a positive result for you. Yeah. And that's where it's also really important to understand the difference between trading and investing. Investing is we're buying assets with the hope that they're going to go up in time over the long term. We don't care about the noise in between and what's happening now, because in 10 years, the reality is the economy is going to be in a better position now than it was when we started. Trading is you're getting in and out of positions, singular positions, trying to make small returns here and there. It's called scalping. Awful. It's got an awful name. But you're basically just scalping profits off the top. That is trading. That's not what we do with our clients at all. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Now, I know we're pushing on time a little bit, brother.
Yeah, sorry, we're talking too much.
It's all right, mate. It's interesting stuff, but I wanted to do like a bit of a practical crossover now. Again, let's link it back. Let's link it back to like the fitness element.
Yeah.
And this is a fitness podcast, but
yeah,
because we've got a lot of clients that we work with, this is why it's so good, because we've got a lot of clients that are company owners, business owners, CEOs that are on the program that have invested in the health.
Yeah.
So now it's a good opportunity to actually hear from the man himself, what sort of investments they should or could be making,
Elaborate.
Well, that was just a comment, mate. I wanted to go into now, like, everyday spending. How important is it? Like, my grandfather always had a saying, watch the pennies.
And the pounds will take care of themselves.
That's the one. Yeah. And sort of linking that back to nutrition. If a client doesn't like track their calories diligently, they've not got the data there, and they're not going to have as likely of a succession, when we come to check in that week. So should people be be really dubious with like the daily spending as opposed to like bigger investments as well? Because we've talked a lot about the big.
Okay. So let's link this to fitness. If you take on too many calories and you don't spend the same amount of calories, you're going to put fat on, are you? Yeah. So if you're taking in more calories than you're burning, it's plain and simple. You're going to put weight on. You're going to go the other way. If you're spending more than you're earning, you're going backwards financially, right? So I think it's really important to diligently keep an eye on things on a micro level. Yeah. Rather than zoom out and think about the big stuff, you've got to get a grip of the small stuff first. Easiest way you can do that is the term pay yourself first. So what most people do is they get paid, they pay all the bills, they spend what's left on nights out and the things they want to buy, and then they save what's left. Well, guess what? There's nothing left to save, right? There's nothing left to invest because they've spent it all. Flip that around. Money comes in, you pay yourself first, whatever it's going to be. That goes into your investments, your emergency fund, whatever it may be. That goes towards the financial planning. Then you pay all your bills and all the things that you need to pay before you get yourself in trouble. Then you spend what's left. If you can flip that, you will very quickly make a lot of progress in the same way as like, you start tracking your calories.
Yep.
You start understanding, well, if I have this donut, I'm going backwards. You know what I mean? Yeah. If I have this snack or if I have this dessert or whatever it's going to be, that's going to put me out of the plan. I'm now going to be over. I'm going to have to do X amount of steps to kind of, make up. Blah blah blah. You're just making life harder for you.
It's like progressively overloading.
Yeah.
You need to track the data to understand your pitfalls, and because sometimes if you zoom out and you look at the daily spending and you actually start to look at it specifically, £5 coffees here and there. We word it so like say if someone's looking at booking in for a call on the Academy program, we'll say, well, how much do you spend on coffee a day? Do you get a Starbucks? That can be sometimes £7-8.
Yes.
That's how much it is per day to stay on the program. But if you actually look at it,
that's such a good way to look at it, and that's the same with like when I speak to a client. Most of my clients that they're earning good money, so it's a bit easier. But for the clients that are kind of really in a bit of a pickle, and I'm just trying to give them guidance, I'll say, you've said that you've got no money. Well, if we go through your expenses, you'd be amazed how much money just slips through the net. Over a month period, that adds up to an amount that would actually make a difference if you just put it to one side and invested it and started, using an ISA or something like that. You can cut out loads of bits that you don't even know you're spending or eating, to then be able to actually make a difference. You know what I mean? So yeah, you're absolutely right in what you're saying there.
Well, what would you say to someone that might say, I'll start investing when I make more money?
I think the best time to start investing is yesterday, and the second best time is to start today. And I think that's not an excuse. I think if you feel that way, there is always things you can cut back on. Always. We live a very comfortable standard of living in today's society.
Yep.
We have everything at our fingertips. It's too easy to spend money. That's the problem. And I think if you actually, really had a conversation with yourself and you really reflected on like your bank statement and stuff, I guarantee you'll be able to find some money to put to one side to start with.
When you actually start looking into it and you get some sort of guidance.
Yeah, and just get yourself to the point where you've got an emergency fund, then start thinking, I need some guidance because now I've got the emergency fund. What do I do next? Sort of thing. In the same sense that someone might take the first step to clean their life up a bit, maybe cut down on drinking, do a few bits, walk the dog twice a day, Yeah, exactly. Do the things that they need to do. And then they go, well, actually, I now really want to take this seriously and reach out to a coach.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, mate, I mean, this has been super insightful. We're just going to come on.
I hope so.
Now.
I hope so.
Yeah, lovely, mate. Don't worry. At the end of every podcast, I always like to do like a quick fire sort of wrap up now.
Right.
It doesn't need to be
Not too on the spot. I'll give you one sentence answers. How about
one
that?
sentence answers. That's perfect, mate.
Right.
Because otherwise, we'll be here for another 15, 20 minutes and we'll still be going,
chatting away. Right.
Yeah. Biggest financial lesson that you have learnt personally? Think.
Don't buy cars on finance. Simple as that.
Right. What's the biggest like return on investment decision you've made?
Listening to a mentor.
Okay.
Putting my ego to one side and listening to a mentor.
I think as well, if you can delay gratification, you can hold wealth outside of that as well.
Yeah, definitely.
If you could give your 20-year-old self one money lesson, apart from don't get a car on finance.
Yeah, it would be exactly what you just said, delay gratification.
Yeah.
It would be stop wanting everything now. Stop trying to live a champagne lifestyle on lemonade money and think about tomorrow. That's what it would be.
And compound interest and consistency.
Exactly, yeah.
Do that. Same principle, different currency.
Definitely.
Right, mate. Well, thank you very much for coming onto the podcast.
No worries, man.
Really appreciate it.
No problem at all.
Hopefully you guys have found some good value out of today's episode. If there's anyone watching that, needs some specific financial guidance,
tailored financial
advice, be sure to reach out to Jack. This guy knows what he's talking about. You couldn't tell. But the next guest that I've got on is going to be AJ, who is a blood work specialist. So we're going to be talking all things hormones, everything to do with our body physiologically. So look forward to that one, and I will see you there. Peace. See you later.